Hello and welcome to Uncanny Book Club. I'm Isaac Faderspiel, and joining me as always is my co-host, Adam Ward.
Yo,
we are both feeling the pains of homeownership.
Yeah, we sure are. We just spent the last 30 minutes talking about water getting into our homes.
Typical old man talk.
Yeah, if I started going on about how much time I spend gardening, you guys are going to really age me up, I imagine.
Man, there is quite a lot of gardening to-dos outside my house.
Like actual gardening, or are we talking just landscaping?
Landscaping type stuff, severe amounts of weeding, severe amounts of like a hedge needs. Like realistically, if I could trim it in half, it should be trimmed in half, but the internet tells me that it might kill it if I do that.
You gotta probably just do it gradually, you know? Like shave some off, some more off.
So the issue is the trimmers that I have, they just can't cut it. You know, they're no good. But if I go to Home Depot and rent it out for like $50, I just can't. I don't want to drop like $300, $400 on like a hedge trimmer, you know?
Well, you could always do it the old American way and just throw some good old gasoline on there with a nice match. Kaboom.
Something to consider.
And not that I'm condoning arson in any capacity. Would it be arson if it's your own hedge? I don't know. It probably depends on where you live. If you're in a city, probably arson. If you're out in the boons and nobody's around to see you doing it, then
if nobody sees you commit arson, it's not a crime.
Yeah. If it's your own bush, it's not arson. Probably, I don't know. Not a lawyer, to be clear.
Hard to say.
You know who needs a lawyer, though? Kitty Pryde, because she is dealing with Morlock law, I see here.
Yeah, there's a big book of Morlock law. And then the very next page is ceremony of marriage.
I was trying to get a closer look to see if they actually put some thought into exactly what Morlock law would consist of, but...
It looks like there's a G, a P, maybe
F,
a B and an E.
An F in it. Man, you need some glasses.
First.
What are you talking about?
I'm zooming in, man. Could be a C. C, P.
Enhance.
D, E.
Yeah, I got a G, a P, and E. Yeah, that could be a B, an F, and an A.
The ceremony of marriage is definitely F and A.
F and A. That's certainly how Katie felt about this entire situation.
Insert GIF of F and A, man.
Yeah, I think that will be the overarching thread of these 3 issues for us. Just
I feel like there's a strong potential that we can like breeze through these 3.
This might be our lowest scoring series of issues we've ever reviewed.
Yeah,
it's not great. It's not great.
There's definitely that potential
for different reasons. They're not great.
Yeah, I think we just kick into it now.
Yeah, let's just jump in and let's all live through this incredibly cringy and borderline criminal marriage that we are about to witness between Kitty and Caliban.
Well, this is America, so sometimes they have a little bit of trouble with those child marriage laws.
Well, it's all written there in Morlock.
Books.
It's not U.S. law; it's Morlock law.
That's true. You know, they really should be doing better. Issue 179 begins with the Morlocks getting a dazed Kitty ready for her upcoming marriage to Caliban for reasons. Meanwhile, the X-Men are shown Kitty's body in the morgue, and Wolverine instantly identifies it as not being her due to the wrong scent. Back in the X-Mansion, Nightcrawler is trying to find signs of life in the frozen-in carbonite Peter. Storm mentally calls the professor to let him know about the Kitty situation, but it's interrupted by a psychic attack and he collapses. At the sewers, Kitty sees her groom-to-be and freaks out. Callisto reminds her of the promise she made to Caliban. Kitty then remembers Peter's plight and says she needs to go save him and that she'll totally come back later. She's again reminded of her broken promise. Kitty ends up fleeing and falls in the sewers, but comes upon a mutant named Leech who is lost. Kitty returns with Leech, and Callisto has him search for their healer to seed a Colossus. Mask messes with Kitty's face a bunch and leaves her with a body horror mess and unable to breathe, but Callisto forces him to turn her back to normal. As she calls out, "Speak now or forever hold your peace," the X-Men arrive to object. Storm attacks Callisto, but Leech, whose mutant power is to turn off other mutants' powers, is dropped on her to stop her powers from working. Storm and Callisto are wrestling on the ground, and Wolverine brings out his claws to take out Leech. But Kitty brings everyone to a halt by saying, "Did you ever consider asking if I wanted to be rescued? Or is this just a convenient excuse to bash in some skulls?" She says the mess is her responsibility and it's up to her to resolve the situation. She says Colossus is what is important now. We jump back to the mansion and see Rogue stealing Peter's powers, returning him back to being a flesh boy, and then the Morlock's healer takes care of what would be fatal wounds. The next day, Kitty says goodbye to Ileana and hands her letters for both Peter and her parents. Caliban later notes how sad she looks and asks if she misses the sun. He announces that the wedding is off and that Caliban loves Kitty, but he won't force her to be with him. He hopes that she will someday return to him. And Kitty is like, "I would be honored to call you a friend." Caliban hands her a flower and walks off.
Oh boy.
I think that's accurate.
So as you were giving that quick rundown of this issue, I was just curious, like what does Caliban do exactly? What's his power?
He finds.
Yeah, he can sense other mutants, basically.
They covered it very briefly. That's how he first showed up in his introduction episode, is because he sensed another one like him and then found Kitty.
So, this also led me to the discovery that Caliban was also in 2 different X-Men films.
It's the same actor, isn't it?
I don't think so. I think they are 2 different actors.
Oh, is it 2 different actors? I know one is Logan.
Yeah, he's in Logan, and he also appears in Apocalypse, apparently. He also becomes a horseman for Apocalypse, not in the film, in the comics. Which I did not know. He becomes Death.
I don't know if I knew that either.
And later becomes Pestilence.
Is that after he's killed in X-Force? Spoilers for how many years into the future is that? 30 from here?
That doesn't count. I don't know. Anyways, Caliban's weird. I don't like him.
Hard to say. He gets better. In 30 years, he's going to be different,
Let's hope. Let's hope.
Honestly, going in, I thought that this was going to be worse than it was. And I think we've both been dreading this particular storyline, just, knowing what's going to happen based off of the cover of the issue and, what happened in the previous few issues. But I mean, the best thing I can say is that I thought it was going to be worse, I guess.
I want our listeners to take a moment here and listen to Uncle Adam. I got a little public service announcement. And I realize I shouldn't have to say this, but, we might have some impressionable listeners who need to hear this. So I'm going to say it. You don't catfish people or hoodwink, deceive, or forcibly try to marry or be in a relationship with someone. And before anyone says, well, actually, Kitty agreed to marry him, she was obviously saying that as a means of getting through a kidnapping and under grave distress.
She also didn't agree to marry him. She agreed to live with him forever and love him or something. Way different.
Bottom line here, Callisto is a manipulator and Caliban is the fool.
It's going to be interesting to see how they handle, because people I think Callisto and where they take her story arc, but they're just really establishing this person sucks. They're really starting us out at rock bottom. This person is just the worst. No really redeeming qualities to them. So that's something to look forward to, I guess.
I got the vibe. So I want you to put your mind here. We're in the 80s at this point, right? So if we think about how a lot of, youngish people were kind of displayed in media at the time, right? They were ruffians who, we even see them in like this confrontation that we get with Storm. I think it's in the next issue or this one where she's at the...
Were they young people, though? They were looking rough, but that just might be like what living on the streets does to you, or living that hard life.
I don't know. I was getting like this. It felt very 80s to me, like the entire way they're being portrayed as like these, like, I don't even know what the right word is. Like, just like they're just out wearing plaid and leather jackets and causing trouble.
I have the exact same note written down for next issue.
Like that's
I'll wait to read my thoughts, but yeah, it's spot on.
Where like, now take that idea, right? And that now we're going to apply it to all of these people who live in the sewers below New York City. And I can see how we would want some contrast here, right? Like most of what we have seen amongst mutants are, with the exception of a few of them, they can get by in society. They're not, outwardly hideous by and large, right? Even Nightcrawler can get by wearing a trench coat and a hat.
Well, and he's sexy, so
yeah, he's got that swagger.
People will look past that blue fur
and how he holds himself. And these are people who have been cast out from society for whatever reason and feel disenfranchised. And so they've turned to this like squandering life in sewers or the underbelly of the city. And it feels just, I don't know, their depiction to me is just very 80s. Just,
yeah.
The what they're wearing, how they're being portrayed as just being like super aggressive, in your face. They're going to pull a knife on you and take your money kind of thing. Not even necessarily homeless, right? Like, to be clear, I am not. That's not the comparison.
They have a home.
Here. These are just, imagine Lost Boys. If you don't know what that is, go watch it. It's pretty good. It's a vampire movie. Kiefer Sutherland's in it, and others. Anywho, I just because we were talking about them and how they were being portrayed, I am curious to see how ultimately Callisto comes around. But like just flipping through this again, I just immediately see her with this eye patch, a leather collar, ripped clothing
with spikes.
And was Mask implying that the Morlocks all look like this deliberately to appear like cast outs?
I don't think so.
You become Morlock, you get a new face. If you like, new whole body. And she says, why? And Mask replies, we outcasts, outlaws. This symbolizes the rejection by you of life you led. The world you knew, the people you loved.
I read it initially as more like, hey, you're too pretty to be down here with the Morlocks. So, but then one wonders why Angel didn't get the same treatment. I guess he's not pretty enough.
I think it's because he was too pretty. And Callisto, who was at the time leading the Morlocks, was thirsty for Angel. So she probably didn't want him to change.
That's the benefits of being the leader.
Well, and as we see, Callisto gets her to stop, right, and revert back to normal. And presumably that's, to continue her manipulation with Caliban. But on this page that I'm looking at right now, where Mask is giving this speech, we can see Leech, who looks awesome, by the way.
Yeah, one of my only notes for this issue is that, one positive about doing a Morlock storyline is that it seems like the art team has just a lot of fun with it. And it's nice to see them have the opportunity to stretch their creativity.
Yeah, they can be a little funkier in their appearance. And apparently
the melted face is very scary.
You can be a bit of a leather daddy, too, it looks like.
80s, man.
That's the outfit this guy's wearing. He's wearing like a yellow thong and a...
Oh, yeah, I see him.
Like
there's also the
strap.
There's the guy in the black leather on the lower left next to the red-skinned guy.
Yeah, I see that, too.
He's kind of rocking the... What was the character that was in like those early issues where Scott had also like dressed up as him and was like had those sexy legs?
I'm looking it up. He had a weird name.
Eric the Red.
Yes, that's the one. That's the guy.
He's got a little bit of an Eric the Red vibe.
I typed in to Google
sexy Cyclops,
leather daddy X-Men villain, and Mr. Sinister was what the AI came up with.
That's pretty good.
That's
makes
pretty
sense.
Good, yeah.
I'll take that. I'm assuming it's the same character, but it's interesting to see Leech here as this when, I mean, like his I know his appearance changes like throughout the years or whatever. Like he loses the head isn't elongated back like it isn't here.
Yeah.
And like I feel like he's a kid in more modern comics because he's hanging out with Franklin Richards all the time.
Yeah, he's like in the Future Foundation.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he's definitely portrayed more childlike. And I think that probably makes sense. I think, the appearance here and the way he's being used doesn't necessarily give me child vibes as much as it is like a downtrodden person who's being manipulated by Callisto, which seemingly all these people are.
My other note is that I like the Peter plan that they came up with. Like, obviously it needs the healer part, but I like the whole, like, all right, Rogue is going to steal his powers and then like a healer comes in, fixes him up. I think that's a smart way to deal with the situation. I would have liked to see it have like a longer lasting negative effect. Like we talked about this a little bit when we were doing Brood and space stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And there was the whole like Peter was almost dead and then he had like half an issue, like one issue of like being like, things are a little rough for him. And then like the issue after that, he was like kicking doors off the hinges and like charging into battle. It's like we do get a little bit of that, but I feel like I feel like there should have been more, or like maybe his metal form should have a certain amount of like damage for a while, but I get it.
Yeah, I'm looking at the page right now where Rogue is kind of approaching Colossus from behind, and his face looks absolutely horrifying. And then on the next page, we start to see this transformation happening, right? So basically the plan, I know you mentioned it earlier, but the plan is for Rogue to essentially trick Colossus's powers into deactivating, and she's absorbing his powers to do so. So she's stripping him of those powers. And there is a panel after, we start to see Peter kind of go back to his human form, and it's very small, and the healer starts to do his thing on Peter. And in the background,
it's kind of haunting.
There is a haunting image of Rogue now with this kryptonite-looking face, or not kryptonite. Oh my god!
She stole his like howling in agony
face,
carbonite face.
Carbonite face.
It doesn't really make sense though. Like, but she shouldn't. Like, she should just be metal, realistically.
Maybe at this point in time, her power set wasn't as thought out as it is now.
She's just stealing the current state of his metal skin, which is no bueno.
And then shortly after, she's like, they don't even go back to her at any point in time. So assumingly she's fine. But, the other thing too is like, I just felt like Kitty, we've seen this before. And like, I feel like Chris couldn't really decide how Kitty should be acting in some situations. Like sometimes she gets portrayed like very adult, can handle these big complex situations, these high stress situations. We even complimented the fact that Kitty was going out of her way, realizing that she was no match against the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants, and went to go do something she thought would actually be helpful, right? Like notified the X-Men that they were under attack, was going to the Baxter building, remembering that
doing crime.
Reed Richards may have some sort of solution to this problem. But then in this issue, we're back to her being helpless again. And feeling like, oh, I guess I owe something to all of you because I lied earlier. And, she even talks about how is this what I'm becoming now? I'm going I want to just run away, but if I do that, I'm going against this moral compass that I've been taught my entire life. All right. Are we really going to go to that point? Because I prefer like the very confident Kitty. And I get that she's, in this story, a teenage girl. And, children are children. They can switch on a dime.
Children are stupid.
Yeah. And there's part of that, it kind of comes up in the next issue, where her viewpoint on life, being somebody who has been sheltered for most of it, right? And really only experiencing turmoil the way she has after joining the X-Men. She just doesn't have a lot of those worldly experiences that you get with time. That extends to relationships, that extends to, I guess, a situation like this. I'm ultimately talking my way out of my point that I was making earlier. But I don't really like that we get into helpless territory, whereas we could have had a much more confident Kitty who couldn't use her powers, but maybe could have, pulled a Home Alone situation where she's, on the run from the Morlocks in the sewers, as opposed to just, collapsing to her knees, crying that she's never going to get to see her friends and family again, and having this moral internal fighting that she's contemplating. I also have a question for you. Why could Kitty not just contact Xavier? Like, is it because of this psychic attack that he's talking about?
I think so. He goes down and Nightcrawler's like, Amanda, help me get him into life support or whatever it is. So I think he's down for the count through most of this.
The MacGuffin.
Life support cell. Also, who knows, all that concrete, it's like D&D rules where you got the certain layer of lead so the stuff can't go through.
Meanwhile, he's being psychically attacked by something not from this universe. That can penetrate, no problem.
Well, it's in the universe. It's just not from the universe. I assume it's hanging in the park. Maybe.
I have a lot of feelings about this entire psychic situation because I made a note in this issue, or in the beginning of the next one, that was just, what is scanning for Xavier? I was legitimately interested in like this story thread. Like,
what could it be?
Is it like Lalandra related? She's off in space and the X-Men have made enemies outside of Earth. And like, what's going on?
Is it Emma?
Yeah, could it be Emma? I don't know. And then he's like, oh, it could be from out of our universe. What's going on? I'm like, okay, this is going somewhere. I like the story thread. And then they go and muck it up.
Crossover event, baby.
Ugh. Why don't you get that over with? Get us going on the next issue, because I got thoughts and opinions.
Issue 180 begins with Charles shooting some hoops, but he's taken to the ground by another psychic blast that he's identified as a scanning wave. Storm finds him and they have a quick chat. She talks of how Kitty believes her to be a monster and about her self-doubt, issues with identity, saying she fears and sometimes hopes that she's going insane. Xavier gives a quick probe and declares no mental illness. He offers her his help, but she says it's something she must do for herself. We then see Kitty and Doug Ramsey playing arcade games. Their high score fries the machine and they're kicked out and banned from the arcade. The two talk about Aurora and how Kitty believes the situation is unfair. Doug then says he has an appointment with the Massachusetts Academy and asks for Kitty to go with him since she has experience there. Kitty is not thrilled as Emma Frost of the Hellfire Club runs the school. Peter should be resting but is chopping down trees one-handed. He is in a mood because Kitty is spending time with Doug and not him. He believes himself to be an ignorant peasant and that there's too much between them intellectually and culturally. Wolverine says if that's what he truly believes, he's already lost. We see Storm walking the botanical gardens, visiting her old plants. She comes across a group of muggers and teaches them a lesson, but their victims are more afraid of Storm than the attackers. Xavier summons her home, and there's a meeting to discuss Doug's appointment with the Massachusetts Academy. Kitty has come up with a plan. She will go with him while the professor monitors telepathically. Xavier wonders if the Academy is interested in Doug because they have discovered he is a mutant. The revelation shocks Kitty, and Charles says that his gift is language, both computers and human. He asks Storm her opinion of Kitty's plan, and she approves with reservations, as does he. Later, Aurora has had enough of Kitty's attitude, and she swoops her high into the sky so they can hash it out. She says that if Kitty loves her, she needs to let her figure herself out. Kitty embraces her and says she's scared of the same thing happening to her someday. Aurora asks for her support, and Kitty says she will try. In the closing panels, we see Doug and Kitty board a private jet. Just after they take off, Emma reveals herself, and Kitty calls for the professor's help. Unfortunately, at the same time, the professor has taken the X-Men to Central Park, as he's identified the psychic scanning wave to be coming from there. They approach a strange structure and are spirited away from Earth and reality as they know it. Their adventure continues in The Secret Wars, and Kitty's continues in New Mutants number 15.
How about we begin with my first note? These panels of Xavier grabbing Storm's head are weird.
They are weird.
The way they are just
As is his thought of looking at her now, I suddenly find myself all too aware of how female and attractive she is. What a weird way to phrase it, too.
It's so weird.
That's a whole lot of female.
And what you're just putting, your power isn't, let me scan your head. You know what? No mental illness. Not a doctor. You're good.
It's so funny that it's stretched out over the 3 panels too. There's a lot of action and motion going into the whole he's reaching towards her with his hand all clawed up and then touches her and then takes it away.
The ellipses are doing a lot of heavy lifting here. My psi probe reveals no mental illness.
That's just the surface scan, though.
What?
There could be more.
I know, as he alludes to, but yeah,
he's just trying to spend some more time with her.
Being a creep. He's like, well, now that I can walk around and shoot hoops, maybe this changes things.
We talked about the gangster mugger type situation or whatever, and you were just really highlighted how 80s it felt.
Yes.
My note is there's a certain magic to how any gangster / city criminal representation in these books is just exactly how 70s and 80s movie stereotypes line up in my brain.
100%. Down to them pulling out these retractable knives. Yeah. That's just I can hear.
Are they even retractable?
I don't know. To me, they are. I mean,
they look like they could be, but they seem very fancy.
Kind of like daggers, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm no sword or blade expert. I've watched my fair share of Forged in Fire, but not enough to know the difference between what this could be. But to me, I can hear them pulling the knife out and then pressing that button that would eject the blade, the
switchblade.
Yeah, and then they, and then big deal. Nobody, no gang, no cop, and especially no broad does this to a rebel and gets away with it. Cutter.
She decked Nico.
Yeah, she decked Nico. She must know judo or something. It's so still. Oh, I love it. Because they wouldn't be portrayed like this now. They would be portrayed I don't know, almost assassin-like, I'm sure. And then she throws the guy into the poison oak. It's just so perfect.
Beware, poison oak.
It's brilliant. I did like her. There is this story that they are addressing here. I kind of felt a bit of a way about it. In fact, I wrote another PSA for our listeners.
Do we get a PSA for every issue?
No, I don't have one for the next one.
Well, you got time.
I could, yeah, there is time. I could come up with it on the spot. So, listeners, this is your Uncle Adam again, and this is an important moment to reflect on the importance of communication, because it's really the key part of any relationship. Early in this issue, I wrote this note on how it's great that Kitty is expressing her concerns with Doug, But ultimately, he isn't Storm, right? Like, she's just kind of offloading her personal feelings around this transition that Storm's gone through, how she doesn't view her to be the same person that, kind of fills this mother role. And I made this note because I felt, well, Kitty, you should really be having this conversation with Storm, not with Doug. And going back to the point I made earlier around, her inexperience of dealing with complex relationships. This is, friendships, this happens in friendships. People change. Like, Storm has had a bit of an existential crisis in her life. And she's had a lot of reflection and change and has, come to realizations about herself that she didn't realize before. Right. And I think Chris does a really good job here coming full circle in this issue. We're starting off in the beginning talking about, does she think there's something wrong with her? Like, what's happening to me? I can't comprehend this. Is there something going on inside me? Xavier, can you take a look behind the curtain and see if there's anything happening that can explain how I'm feeling? And she's really struggled as well to kind of communicate these changes. And you can tell just how stubborn they are. And so this issue beyond Kitty and Aurora is really about those relationships. We see this interaction with Colossus in the woods, felling trees, which again, at least they acknowledge is something he shouldn't be doing, but he's doing it anyways. And Logan, of all the people here, does an incredible service to Colossus, who is reflecting on, how if he was in Russia, they could, him and Kitty could be together and it wouldn't be weird. And that's okay in Russian culture, at this time. And, Logan's just like, well, if you feel that way about her, you can wait. You can keep those feelings and hold on and wait and see what happens. If it's that important to you, that's the right thing to do. And, he implies that there's some sort of jealousy, Colossus this is, of how he feels about this budding relationship between Kitty and Doug Ramsey, who, like, we haven't seen at any other point in time. I'm curious if
he's been mentioned once.
I'm curious if he's appeared in the New Mutants at all at this point.
I thought we read the other week that this was his first appearance, but I'm not sure.
So it's a bit out of left field that, he's introduced here and there's already this resentment or jealousy that's forming in Colossus around that relationship. But I digress. Logan does an incredible job being a real friend and trying to provide Colossus with some solid advice of, you recognize that right now you can't be with her. She's a child. But if you feel like this is something you want one day, you can wait and see, but you got to let her go. And you can be friends, and that's okay. On the flip side, we have this great sequence at the end where Storm brings Kitty up into the sky and they have it out. Finally, they have the heart to heart where they just communicate, and it's emotional and it's aggressive and it's passionate, and really it ends with them coming to an understanding. They've now communicated. They had the dialogue, and, friendships can be hard. Relationships can be hard. Having a partner can be hard. But when you can have that dialogue, you can often work through those problems. That's a very mature way of handling situations. So I was really happy to see, despite my initial feelings as I was reading the book, thinking, hey, this is really, childish how everybody's acting, or, general stubbornness, only for things to kind of move back around. And, Chris did kind of close the loop, which I really, really appreciated. And I felt like among the three issues, to me, this was like the highlight, was this, really personal storytelling around like the relationships of the X-Men, which is something we've really complimented in the past.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, my main feeling about this book was that it's kind of like a transition issue, and we're getting a lot of the more personal, more small moments, but I'm not super invested in Kitty plus Peter, so that drama doesn't really interest me. And I'm not super invested in Kitty's weird feelings towards Storm, so that drama doesn't interest me as much. So it kind of, there's a lot of swings and misses, but it's cool to see Doug.
Yeah, cool to see Doug. Interesting that Xavier's not actively trying to woo him to.
Do they ever
to his
explain?
School?
Yeah, that is weird that he's not like, hey man, we could really use some more kids at the school. But did they ever explain how Xavier, he's just suddenly better now, huh?
Yeah, they just
Landra was like, I know what the issue is, but then they just, I guess he's better.
You're referring to him playing ball.
Yeah, because before he could walk, but then it would cause him immense pain.
They've just alluded to it being it's not a physical thing as much as it's.
Well, they said that, but then
a mental
she was like, I think it is a physical thing, and I think I know how to fix it. I think they just decided that they didn't want to continue that, so they did a little shortcut, and we're like, it is a physical thing. Landra fixed it with alien stuff.
Well, and I think, part of this too, and this isn't a slight against Chris, because I think creators at times can be shoehorned by editorial decisions and having to write around bigger stories, which, let's just rip the Band-Aid off here. Having the conclusion of things pivoting into Secret Wars was not great. It was a complete detriment. And frankly, to have this story thread of these mind attacks that Xavier's been experiencing for multiple issues, ultimately just leading up to, it's multiple.
Yeah, but I didn't know if there was any from the last batch.
I thought there was, I could be wrong, but I thought there was one other time, in the issue before this.
It might have just been Mystique doing Mystique things.
Potentially. But the fact that, you're building this story thread, and I get it, they're trying to sell comic books and they're trying to get you to go and read Secret Wars. As somebody who's just reading the X-Men, and as somebody who's not going to go read Secret Wars, it felt like a real shame to, get to that end of that book and then just have that disclaimer of, not only are we not going to conclude this story with the X-Men, we're also having devoted a crap ton of time talking about Doug and Kitty going to Massachusetts and going to Emma Frost's school and coming up with this big plan to ensure that nothing bad happens, knowing that Emma Frost and potentially Sebastian Shaw could be there. A ton of time, almost half this book is spent with Kitty convincing everybody about her plan to go and how she's thought of all these different scenarios, only to then just say, well, I know, reader, you're probably invested in the story now. If you want the conclusion of that, you're going to have to go read New Mutants. Again, I can appreciate crossover and, intermingling and trying to promote other books. But anybody who is not going to do that, it just feels shitty. There's no other way to put it. Now, if you would like, I can enlighten you about what was so important that they had to pull these stories in different directions. What happened in Secret Wars to the X-Men? What happened with Kitty? I can answer that question for you. So spoilers, and I will pause in case any of our wonderful listeners want to, skip ahead a little bit. Now's your chance. I'll give you a nice moment of silence. All right, let's start with Secret Wars here, because I was curious, what were the X-Men up to? Because those are historically, from what I've devoured when it comes to Secret Wars, are not really X-Men books. And the major takeaway is they really could not have been involved, and it would have been completely fine. Because what ends up happening in the Secret Wars is High Level, the Beyonder, who is this omnipotent presence, basically brings heroes and villains from across Marvel together on Battle World, and they fight. That is the general concept. The X-Men show up, and they essentially align themselves with Magneto. and become a third-party faction. So they're not with the heroes and they're not with the villains. They're just kind of there. They do fight the villains multiple times and have successes, but they are not really a key player compared to other heroes and villains in the story. All right, so what did they get up to? What's the big thing here? Okay, so the big takeaway that I noted is Colossus falls what is described as passionately in love with an alien healer named, oh God, I'm gonna butcher this, Zaji, something like that. It's a bit of an odd spelling, Zsaji. That's Z for you Americans listening.
Thank you for the additional disclaimer.
You're very welcome.
I knew what it meant. I'm cultured, but...
Yeah, you're a man of the world. So he falls in love with Zaji, and then by the end of this, Zaji sacrifices herself to resurrect all of the fallen heroes, and then Colossus, once again, is the X-Men to take the L, and is devastated that this alien that he has fallen in love with is now dead. That is the major takeaway.
Bummer.
All right, so there are Secret Wars. Kitty, I will not get as high level. If you really want to know the ins and outs of it, you should probably just read New Mutants, because there's a lot of overarching specific stuff that happens to that. But the main thing is, so at this point, right, Kitty has her plan. The X-Men are going to monitor her. She's going to communicate with Xavier, but oh my God, they're gone off the battle world. They can't do that now. So Illyana uses her magic to check in on Kitty and finds out she's been kidnapped. And then the New Mutants basically spend 3 issues trying to rescue her from Shaw and Frost.
It's a long time.
Yeah, it's some wackiness happens with like Illyana's sorcery stuff, where she summons some demons from Limbo mistakenly. So they have to spend some time dealing with that. And then they take a bus to Massachusetts to go and rescue Kitty and Doug. And once they get there, they basically get their butts kicked by Shaw and Emma. They're just like totally outmatched. And eventually Illyana and one of the other New Mutants have to like escape to Limbo and deal with some more demon stuff, and then go back, and they find out she's a sorcerer, which apparently none of them knew about. And then eventually they save Kitty. But they don't like defeat the villains in this story. They just kind of like eventually get away.
Does Doug stay at the school?
I don't think so. But I
wouldn't think so.
But
either.
I don't know for sure.
Maybe he joins the New Mutants at that point. Probably for the best.
Because as Xavier alludes to, like he is a mutant. Somehow Kitty didn't know that, because apparently Doug doesn't know that. And I guess Charles's rationale here is that his powers are language, and because of that, it could actually serve fine in a normal life, non-X-Men life. And so he was
if you can't blast aliens, you can't make the X-Men.
The irony, of course, being that without Doug in the modern times, like the whole Krakoa era would never have happened. Like Doug was the
And now
key.
he's the heir to Apocalypse.
Or was, I don't know. Is he still?
I think he still is in modern, like because they did the alternate future-y stuff, and then they came back, and I think he's out there now, I guess. Him, Morlock, and Bay.
Is he still married to
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. All right, there you go. The punting of these stories to other books just really undermines all of the story threads. And as we'll see, coming back from Secret Wars, the next issue really suffers because of it.
I think we dive in now.
Yeah, please do.
Issue 181 starts with a little nod to the Man of Steel, with a group of Japanese kids saying, "It's a bird, it's a plane, it's a dragon." A giant dragon has appeared in Japan, and the X-Men are dropped from under it as well. Rogue gets sent to Massachusetts to check on Kitty and Doug, and the rest of the team stays put to deal with the dragon. Lockheed is also with them and was with them for Secret Wars, and apparently the other dragon and him were the same size previously. Wolverine also notes that the professor is undercutting Storm's authority and is taking command, which bothers him. Japan's war room spots the dragon headed for Tokyo and deploys their military to keep it in check. Mariko is also there and learns the X-Men are in pursuit. She tasks her cousin Shiro, aka Firestorm, to assist. The professor continues to give commands in the field. Sunfire stops a building from falling on him, but a dangerous amount of debris ends up falling on him anyway. We take a quick break to see Maddie alone in Tahiti when Scott is likewise returned to Earth. She's pretty upset with him and the situation, but the two embrace. Back in the fight, Storm accidentally creates a tornado that shoots her high into the air, and Charles is still trapped under the debris. He's freaking out and messing with everyone's mental comms, and Wolverine tells him to cut it out. Peter is sent for the professor and saves him. Chuck's terror is coming from his past experience of having his legs crushed. They were originally crushed by an alien named Lucifer, by the way. Logan rescues a kid, but is too late to save the mother. Firestorm catches Storm, but the day is truly saved when Lockheed steps in. He breathes a little fire on her face and she flies away in distress. She can't believe Lockheed would treat her this way after she gave him her heart, but the issue notes that she didn't realize it was a gift he never asked for nor desired. The war room is tracking the dragon, which is veering toward the Soviets, and notes a second tiny blip headed for it. The two close and disappear from the radar. Firestorm says that the small blip was Lockheed. Colossus asks if the professor can learn where they went and why only he returned. Charles notes that his mind is truly alien, and Kitty has the best chance of understanding him. In the issue's epilogue, Senator Kelly is discussing his bill. Another man named Philip, who might be the president, I'm not sure, calls it an obscenity and says it isn't far removed from legalized slavery. Kelly notes that it takes sophistication to create a nuclear bomb, but any nation can create and utilize mutants. In the closing panel, we see his bill, the Mutant Affairs Control Act, placed upon the desk.
So I dug up a little bit of info on the whole extended Secret Wars element story thread here with this dragon. So you alluded to some of it. So Lockheed he also went to Battle World, but not
everyone but Kitty.
Not Kitty. Yeah, not Kitty. For some reason, she had to go deal with Doug Ramsey and the Hellfire Club. Anywho, so Lockheed, while they were in Battle World, meets this green dragon, which is later named Puff. And
makes sense.
The heroes, when they're teleported back to Earth, she came with them. And when they arrive, she grows instantly to this colossal Godzilla-like size and, rampages through Tokyo to build a nest. And yeah, as you said, it all spuns out of control when Lockheed essentially just rejects her love. There you go.
Just dragon stuff.
Dragon love. It's foreign to us humans, but I'm sure to dragons it's very touching and devastating to see him turn her away to extinguish her advances.
So what's up with Mariko in the war room? Like, what kind of power role does she have in there? Like, what's going on? I'm very confused, but it's fine, I guess.
Maybe it's just.
I know she's important, and the family is a political player, but it just feels kind of odd.
Yes, it is very odd. And I thought maybe it's just solely because they're in Japan, so.
We're going to Japan, so the two Japanese characters we've established are going to be there. Surprised there was no Yukio.
Yeah, where's the Silver Samurai?
She just shows up and also attacks the dragon.
I, in the same vein, thought, because when Sunfire shows up, he makes this grandiose entrance and says something like, Xavier is a fool. Because here I am, it's me. I am the one and only defender of the rising sun.
Then drops a ton of shit on Chuck.
Yeah, he really does. But, like, where were you through the entire Logan stuff? Like, why aren't you dismantling the underworld?
He's busy.
Doing what?
I mean,
fighting kaiju, I guess?
he's not like a mainline family. He's the cousin, so he's not as key to the clan.
He would have more skin in the game than Wolverine. Well, maybe not. That's a lie. That's not true. I retract my foolish statement. Yeah, man, pretty unremarkable, honestly. Like even for Monster of the Week standards.
It felt like it really suffered from like, the previous issue had to set up like Secret Wars and a different storyline, and then this one is kind of suffering from having to then get us out of Secret Wars.
Hey, we're back. Oh, we're back in Japan. Also, we're not here because of a major storyline, but we brought back a dragon that just, turns into Rodan and destroys Tokyo.
Very brief check-in with Scott and Maddie, too.
Yeah.
Kind of just like the page of like, where were you? Why did you leave? It's not my fault. I got stolen from reality and stuff. You knew it was going to be like this. Come on, babe.
As somebody who obviously didn't read Secret Wars, it was very weird. Like, I wouldn't even have thought Scott would have gone.
Everyone but Kitty.
Everyone but Kitty. The Beyonder said, nah, she's got her hand full.
She should stay in school.
We should deal with...
Invite her on a school night? Are you crazy?
Crazy times. I think the most interesting part of this was the final page. Like
100%.
That final interactions.
It gives me hope
of what's to come.
Yeah. I feel like these three are like issues of unfortunate circumstance, and from here on it should be smooth sailing for the next three, I assume. I haven't looked at the covers, but I'm gonna say right now that they're good.
Yeah, that is my hope. I'm just kind of flipping through, not to spoil anything, so I won't say, but it looks promising. Like,
there's guns.
We get some rogue stuff. We get what I think might be Juggernaut.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that'll be fun to see.
And then Rachel?
Looks like Rachel Summers.
There we go. A lot is going to happen over the next 3 issues. We got guns, Juggernaut, and long lost children, future children of the Hallmark mutant families.
Yeah, just another wrinkle in the Summers family tree. Well, I don't have any other notes. I feel like I've been pretty vocal this episode, so I apologize.
No, I mean, like, someone had to say something, but yeah, I don't know. It was all just very like, of all the issues that issued, these were some issues.
These will be at the very bottom of the list of issues I will remember from reading this. It has largely been a very good run of the X-Men.
The one note I did have, like, this is like, and I think I've made this comment before, but this is a stretch of issues where I'm disappointed individually, but if I were reading like a batch of like 5 or 10, I wouldn't mind as much, and I think I would, still have that appreciation of the bigger picture, but it's difficult when really singling them out,
I think off the top I said, these issues all suffer for various reasons. I mean, the Morlock stuff is just, it's just not great, in my opinion. It's just, I'm not interested. It's like weird in a uncomfortable way, not in a fun way. At least the last time we were with the Morlocks, we had some fun. There were some fun moments between them trying to tie up the X-Men and it just constantly failing.
That was the best.
We had like the awesome fight with with Storm and Callisto. That was great. This time it's just like I could do without it.
Yeah.
It's again, don't go doing that in relationships, fellows and ladies. Whomever's listening, just don't do that. It's not good.
I'm gonna keep my overall thoughts brief. There's things to find and enjoy in all 3 issues, but overall we're kind of treading water. It feels like it's a lot of things can't move forward because there's a big crossover event that's happening, and then just different levels of unfortunateness. But tricky. I will give like a 4 out of 10. Feels appropriate.
I am also going to keep my thoughts short because I think I've been quite thorough in my opinion of these issues. I agree with everything you said. I don't think there was anything I liked about the Morlock issue. It was just uncomfortable. Beyond Rogue, I guess, using her powers the way she did, that was the highlight. There's
a little bit of good Wolverine stuff in there where he scares away the Doctor. Some gruffness.
That's just normal Wolverine. If he's just a neutral, that's Wolverine.
Yeah.
And then, I think Marvel editorial really stymied any sort of momentum that existed in that issue. Although I will give credit for the full circle Kitty and Storm situation, and hopefully this means we can now move past this X-Men drama that was kind of lingering the last many issues. I am going to probably give this my lowest score. It will not be as low as yours, but I will give this like a 6.
Nice.
Which to me is low. We talked about the grading before, and we don't really have like a...
We'll get there eventually. We'll have it. Well, there will be 2 different grades though. Like there's the, what does Adam's scores mean? What do Isaac's scores mean? So
yeah, we'll develop a chart at some point.
That does it for this episode of Uncanny Book Club. Thanks for listening, and we hope to see you next episode where we'll discuss issues 182 to 184.
Here's looking forward to better comics. Peace.
Thanks for tuning in to this episode of Uncanny Book Club. If you enjoyed this podcast, don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, or share with a friend.